Tone Talks in the building. We have our discussion. It's Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Looking forward to having a discussion today. Oh, man. You know, this is going to be an interesting one because I'm going to look forward to getting a lot of opinions in here so I can see what everybody's thinking about this topic line. I don't want to give anybody any kind of idea that I'm trying to be judgmental in this show. I'm really trying to give you my opinion. My opinion doesn't set the bar. This is not a data-driven show. This is more about where we at as black folks. It's time to ask the questions. So I was sitting around and I realized everybody's talking. Either we talking about the NBA and Stephen Curry, or we talking about Daenerys and Game of Thrones. That's all I see black folks talking about. Dragons and warriors. So I came up with this concept of this show and I want to have it out. I want to ask the question: Game of Thrones, NBA basketball, and escapism. Golden State Warriors to Game of Thrones Dragons. And I want to kind of set up a whole set of questions, ask these questions, get you guys to call in. Then at the end, I'm going to look at some different tweets that I saw. Black folks use their Twitter in quite an interesting way. I think a lot of it is escapism. So again, Game of Thrones, NBA basketball, and escapism. Golden State Warriors to GOT Dragons. Warriors and Dragons. Is we trying to avoid all these decisions that are coming down in the Deep South? Are we trying to avoid politics in this democratic field and what we need to do to pull out these teeth? Can we do two things at the same time? Everybody's going to say, well, we can chew gum and walk. I don't know if that's what we doing. When I look at how we use Instagram, how we use Twitter, to me at times it feels a little manic. It's scattered. And this is a moment where you got to be focused at a singular level about who you are, where you are, and where you stand. We're in a position to fail economically. And that's what's going on in cities across this country. But I think in a lot of ways we playing, because playing is so much fun, more fun than reality. Let's have the discussion about Game of Thrones and the NBA today. We all watch a little bit. Daenerys done burnt the city down. She done burnt it down, done went mad. Let me ask you, are you watching it because you need to see yourself burning a city down? Or are you watching it because it's just entertainment? Or do you not know the difference? We're going to have that discussion today. We look over at basketball. They had Steph Curry and his brother running around and they made it seem like black folks got money again. Do we remember where they grew up in Charlotte, I think, in that $1 million mansion? I'm just saying, and part of this discussion is because I think black folks don't understand what's coming around this corner. We gonna get into it. I'm gonna give y'all a peek into what I see. This is Dash Radio, Dash Talk X. Please use the super chat. Share this video. It don't take much to share it. I want to have the discussion. I'm gonna give y'all a call in 323-230-4610, a little earlier than usual. And I'm going to go through the questions. That's how we set this thing up. Number one, what is Game of Thrones, the HBO show, and why is it escapism? It's a fantasy show. We'll talk about it in a second. I'll lay it out a little bit to my knowledge. I'm no expert. Watched a few episodes. But I'm seeing people that are fantastical with it, running around here with the outfit on during the show. Number two, are there black people on Game of Thrones, or GOT as it's known on Twitter, in positions of power? And if not, why are black people projecting their lives through these characters? Again, are there black people on Game of Thrones in positions of power? And if not, why are black people projecting themselves through this TV show? Let's talk. Who's left in the NBA? This is number three. Who's left in the NBA and why do you watch it? I want to hear from some people. I want to hear why you watch it. Is it because of you and your family used to go to the games? Is it because you was going to go to the NBA? Is it purely just entertainment? Is it because you love fantasy football and fantasy basketball? Is it just on? Do you not watch it at all? There's a whole lot of ways to go on this thing. One thing I see is a manic type of escapism, and far too many of our people that need to be focused on the politics around their life using this escape hatch entertainment to deal with things. Y'all know I've called it the decadent veil. Black celebrity. black celebrity, entertainment. You know, one of the things that the NBA does is it gives us a fantasy world where rich young black men are able to be used so we don't do politics. I talked about this. Sandy Darity report, what we get wrong about closing the racial wealth gap. I think it's myth 9. The tax bill, when they were talking about the tax bill, the Republicans used none other than Stephen Curry in their informational package, because Stephen Curry exists. Now you might say, well, that's not Steph Curry's fault. Well, it is kind of our fault, because we have elevated him. Instead of saying we're not allowing you to use him, we have elevated him as a normal character in black life, and he just isn't. Let's talk about it. Number 4, is the NBA healthy to watch, and will it get unhealthy as they introduce things such as gambling? We're going to talk about the Supreme Court decision that came down. I know a lot of y'all don't remember or don't know and won't know until it's your husband or your son that's in trouble with them boys down the street, or with the law, or with the civil judgment because he can't pay his gambling bills. But they coming for y'all. And I'm telling y'all that it might be time to turn this little basketball off before they get good at this gambling. A generation of us don't know nothing about lines and points and spreads. They finna teach y'all, and they started doing it already. I was watching TNT 2-3 days ago, and they had a whole section after Barkley and Shaq. They threw it to Vegas. I ain't never seen nothing like it. And in Vegas, they had an Asian boy and a looks like a white lady teaching you how to gamble. Let's talk about what the NBA is about to do to your homes. The NFL. This is the discussion we gotta have. Everybody says, what's the solution? I'm giving it to you. All raw, no chaser. Let's talk about it. Last question is, are our Twitters a sign of our lack of maturity? I know black folks believe in black Twitter. I read an article not too long ago how we misuse the internet altogether. But I know we believe that we're powerful and we shape the culture, and look, we on there playing, giggling and smacking. And part of the reason that ADOS took off is that they had never seen, outside of Black Lives Matter, a bunch of black folks. And understand, Black Lives Matter wasn't black folks, it was intersectional folks. It was just called Black Lives Matter. But a bunch of black folks, ADOS folks, focus on ADOS, coming at Congress members, coming at white folks that talk wrong, coming at people who wrote articles. I don't care if it's the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. I don't care if you talked wrong about ADOS, we was coming. We shifted the political discussion using Twitter while other people were using Twitter to follow Game of Thrones. Come on, let's get to it. What's going to happen with Daenerys and Cersei? I want to have a discussion today because it's time. It's time for us to really get real about what we doing with our lives on our Friday nights. Y'all watching this show, so we in a different box. But hopefully you can share this with your friends, your family, your girlfriends, your homeboys, so that we can get an active discussion, not a judgmental one, even though there's going to be some judgment. Come on. But one where we start to ask the question, well, what should we be doing if we're doing this? Should we moderate this? They say some things are good in moderation. Is moderation enough with the NBA and Game of Thrones? Again, we got the last episode on Sunday, I think. Everybody waiting. They done smashed all this weird stuff in one season. And they done burnt the city down. The last episode, the little white lady burnt the city down. Then they made us feel bad for the white lady that got everybody killed, used them as a shield. Why are we feeling bad for this white lady? I think her name is Cersei or something. She, to me, deserved to die. She got everybody killed. She just had to give up. The lady got dragons. Let's talk about it. So, again, I'm going to take the first caller of the night a little earlier than usual. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Stephanie, and I'm calling from Denver, Colorado, Park Hill.
Hey, what's up, Steph? So look,
hey,
let me set this up. So we talking about, look, Game of Thrones is this fantasy show. Don't jump down my throat, you experts. I know you got your swords and stuff on the chat. But look, Game of Thrones is this fantasy show about these families fighting over who gonna have the Iron Throne. It got a bunch of white families two white queens that want to be the head of the throne and all kind of incest and everything else going on, sexualized and everything. I'm saying to you that there wasn't no black characters till like 5th season in this thing.
Yeah.
There's a great article called "There Are No Black People on Game of Thrones. Why is fantasy TV so white?" And again, I'm noticing that in season 5, just about season 5, they brought on this light-skinned woman as a slave, a former slave or something. But generally speaking, let me read a little section. I'm gonna let you go on. Let me read this. The very first episode aired in 2011. It was clear then that showrunners David Benioff and D.B. Weiss envisioned their world as a white one. The majority of the action took place in Westeros, George R.R. Martin's skewed spin on medieval Britain and the West, where the fair-haired, fair-skinned Lannisters engaged in a generation-long power struggle with the darker-haired, fair-skinned Starks. People of color were not absent from the show, but they were relegated to its categorical margins. In the East or Essos, the Dothraki people were depicted as a nomadic tribe of violent, rape-happy savages. This is until Westeros Princess Daenerys arrived like comic relief and civilized them. But again, that was led by the guy from Aquaman, and he not black neither. I know a lot of black women love these rock kind of, these character kind of people, but this guy, to my knowledge, isn't black either. So there really wasn't any black characters, and even then, I don't know if this woman is even ADOS. I don't know. Give me your thoughts on everything.
Well, first of all, I watched the Game of Thrones, the first season, because, and I'm going to tell you, Whoopi Goldberg, when she was on The View, she was promoting it. And I thought, okay, I'm going to watch it and see what she's talking about, because she came out with this elaborate get-up. So I watched it for the first season. I said, this is not me. Because, just like you said, there was no black people in the first season. And then I started hearing everybody complain about no black people. And then I thought to myself, well, we're not even in that kind of category of making those type of movies. But like you said, the 4th and 5th season, then they decided to put somebody dark. By that time, I wasn't watching it at all because it's a fantasy thing. And more Caucasian people watch that kind of stuff. We don't. We in the reality world. They in a fantasy world. The second thing you talked about was the NBA.
Wait. Slow down. Let's deal with this Game of Thrones first.
Yeah, okay.
So, you got these queens fighting, killing people. Yep. And after they kill people, we still feel for them emotionally for some reason. You got Cersei, and she might as well. She was so despicable that I didn't even understand why we felt any emotional connection to her. And you have to start to ask the question if this connects to the greater image of the white woman. The white woman can do these things and then we can't see past it. What do you think, caller?
I think that they promote the white women a little bit too big, because if you look at that Game of Thrones, all them white women seem to be bigger than the white man. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah. Jamie Lannister, he always running to Cersei, right?
That's right. They think they are tough and big and bad, and I don't understand it. But check this out. You ever notice their hairstyle?
Well, tell me about it.
Okay, am I not seeing the braids? And this is what we were arguing about, me and a friend of mine. And I said, you know what? How come it's a big ordeal when white folks put braids in their hair? But Cicely Tyson was doing it way back in the early 60s and 50s, and it looked ugly. Now white folks wear those braids with the Game of Thrones, and they think that they made something.
Man, I don't know enough about the history of hairstyles to tell you whether.
No, we're talking about the braids. You know about the braids.
I know. Look. You talking about individual braids, Stevie? You talking about them Stevie Wonders, or you talking about? Because I don't know about the whole twisting of the hair on the back. We're
talking cornrows.
Oh yeah, I ain't been watching it enough to see the cornrows and all that. I'm gonna be honest.
And everybody thinks they tough. But I want to tell you something about the NBA, because I really want to say this. I really do. I don't participate no longer in the NBA games, because ever since the Kardashian chicks went through that whole team, all of them, all them brothers on there are sick. Okay. Anytime that they sleep with these Kardashian chicks, because that's all they're after for is these black men, I don't understand and I don't get it. But they done ran through so many teams. I'm thinking about what's going on with the brothers.
Man, thank you. Look, caller, you done brought the fire. Thank you so much for calling. I'm going to try to get to as many calls tonight, let everybody get their opinion in. Thank you so much. Look, she done started it off. Again, we doing the show, Game of Thrones, NBA basketball, and escapism. I done laid out this Game of Thrones, and they had the wall, and they had the White Walkers. Look, I'm not here to get into a deeper discussion about what the White Walkers represent. I don't really want to get into that because that's a whole deep discussion. But they got the people of the North, and then they got the Cersei, she in the main where the Iron Throne is. Then you got Dany being sold by her brother. It's just a whole lot going on there. Now, what's a trip to me is that when I look at this thing and I start to frame it up, I have to ask the question, what draws us to this thing? Now, me and Yvette always have the discussion. We are American, ADOS people, inherently American. But at some level, you want to see some other ADOS people to draw you in. ADOS people in some positions of power, some positions of vocal voice. And I don't know if we saw that for a very long time with Game of Thrones. I don't know if it was ever written to think about us and how we feel. And I start to ask this second question. Are there black people on Game of Thrones in positions of power? And if not, why? Are blacks projecting their lives through these characters? Now, in addition, I'm going to ask the question, is it the same for men and women? You meaning, I've seen a bunch of tweets from women seeing themselves as Cersei. I'm going to go to work like Cersei tomorrow and blow them up with the green dragon fire. Or I'm going to go to work tomorrow and burn them down like Daenerys. I don't know. Do black men do the same thing with Jon Snow or Jaime Lannister? Maybe it's because the characters are written a certain way. We having this discussion because I want to get into escapism, but we got to frame the thing. We got to frame the discussion. Again, this is Dash Radio, Dash Talk X, 323-230-4610. Call in. I want to hear your opinion on everything and how you see this thing. But let me start off with this article. I read a little bit about it before. There are no black people on Game of Thrones. Why is fantasy TV so white? That's the title of it. And in this article, they lay out the history of Game of Thrones. They start to talk about the paragraph I read earlier. But in addition, they say, by season 5, Daenerys has bagged herself. That's the one that ride the dragons, if I'm familiar. Bagged herself a black friend, ex-slave Missandei, and has taken her conquering, liberating mission to Slaver's Bay, where she's hailed as mother by the freed slaves. We have also been introduced to the Dornish, another dusky ethnic group from a distant land who are defined by hypersexualized and aggressive behavior. You needn't be a dedicated student of Edward Said to decipher the creeping Orientalism in these plot lines. You got the white savior on the dragons saving the black folks. I don't know if those are characters of power to me. You had this interesting thing that happened recently with not recently, but it's funny because for ADOS, one of the things that kind of kicked off the whole discussion is that we're not casted in a lot of roles. What we're seeing is that West Africans, Nigerians in particular, are taking a lot of roles. Let's take this caller. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Doug from Virginia.
All right, so look, I was about to finish a thought, and then I'm going to let you speak on however you want to speak on this Game of Thrones thing. The backlash, this is a section of the same article, y'all, that I read earlier. Again, there are no black people on Game of Thrones. The backlash might not have been so severe. However, if Game of Thrones wasn't already perceived to have a problem with diversity. A few weeks earlier, Star Wars actor John Boyega, a man with some personal experience of fandom-specific racism, brought the issue up in a GQ interview. There are no black people on Game of Thrones, he said. I ain't paying no money to always see one type of person on screen because you see different people from different backgrounds, different cultures every day. Look. This the same dude that said we divisive for saying we want to see ADOS on screen. I have no idea what this man is talking about. Not because I don't understand his position, But you don't get to have that position and then not understand when we say we don't want you to play in Detroit. We want to see an ADOS actor. Fundamentally, what you see is him saying, I want to have the same position ADOS have just when it affects me so that I can get a role. That's my view of it. Caller, give me your take on Game of Thrones.
Okay. Well, curiously enough, there are blacks on Game of Thrones. In fact, one of the lead characters in episode 4 literally lost her head. Her name was Missandei, and the head of the military for Daenerys. They call them Grey Worms.
Yeah.
So there are blacks on the Game of Thrones.
They not black though. I don't know if those are black people.
Blacks have gotten into Game of Thrones because it's political. It's about how powerful people use power, how they distribute resources, and how they basically take care of what they call the realm, the world that they live in. And it's the politics, it's the intrigue, it's stuff like that just caught on with all sorts of people, including black Americans.
Yeah. I'll come back to it, and I'll say Missandei, I brought her up already. She was an ex-slave.
Okay. And what about Grey Worm?
And Grey Worm, I believe his whole people caught on to Daenerys. At the end of the day, what I'm saying to you is that even those characters are in question. And those characters came later in the season. Season 5 is when we first see Missandei. But I'm not here to debate. Exactly. I'm not here to debate particulars. I'm here to talk about that's still escapism. And I'm saying right now, black folks don't got time for it. And
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I think you outlined it when you first started. You said that it was set in medieval Europe.
Come on.
If we're going to have it set in medieval Europe, we're not going to have probably not going to have that many black people at all, really. So right now, you start off with kind of a more white situation. However, like I said before, the politics of it, the just the cutthroat intrigue of it, just how power really is, how it's really wielded. I think that's what caught on in the minds of a lot of African Americans, and that's kind of why it stuck.
All right, man.
There were also some pirates. There was one pirate that helped smuggle things into the capital city, and he was kind of a funny character. And then there were some other, believe it or not, there were slavers. The slavers were depicted as blacks. So that's kind of a sad reality, but hey, that's what it came out to be. It's Hollywood.
All right, man.
It's not us. It's Hollywood. We got to know that.
All right. Let me try to take the next caller, give everybody a chance to get in here. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Marlon from Oceanside.
What up, Marlon? Let me say this. The brother said something interesting. He said how power is really wielded. We watching a show on HBO about a lady on a dragon, and we talking about how power is really wielded. The strategy they use with them death walkers, the white walkers, that ain't how power is really wielded. They lost. They just changed the script at the end, if y'all watch that episode. But again, we watching a show about a lady on a dragon telling ourselves we talking about how power is really wielded. Let me tell y'all today, if y'all can awaken away from the escapism and focus on yourself, focus on your family, focus on your community, focus on ADOS, I can really show you how power is wielded and get y'all some really black agenda items. I don't agree that we seeing how power is really wielded. Give me your take on this.
Of course not. And you chose previously said it, like we try to live a post-racial life that doesn't exist, and you see you're trying to superimpose yourself on these characters that are definitely not you. So it's one of those things, like, you got to blame the freaking black baby boomers for this. You know, living the fantasy, saying you can do this and do that, when in reality, we're still living a black life. We're still living in Jim Crow. We're still living in the situation that this country was built on. So, hey, if they want to live in fantasy, you're going to be in the same position we're already in. And then you want a new change, a new future for yourself and the kids you're going to have or you don't have. It's living in the fantasy like this is not going to help us.
Let me ask you a couple questions. Because you a good caller. You done called in before. First one I'm going to ask you is coming back to Boyega, whatever his name is. You know, he comes, Boyega, the guy from...
Boyega?
So he says this comment about Game of Thrones not have black people. But then when we say that none of these movies that you in have ADOS people, you tell us that we divisive. What you think about him? Is that a contradiction?
Of course it is. But he's not about, like, saying truth to power or anything like that. He's trying to get his money. He's trying to, like, be like one of them versus to be, like, you know, I would say not necessarily better, but understand the situation. But if he doesn't understand the situation and he's just being dishonest, that's really it.
Come on. And I think it's probably some of that and some of just not knowing. And that's what ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery, forces upon people in a way that they haven't seen basically in generations. A recognition that we different. We built America. Our legacy and our lineage runs deep. 1600s. I'm just saying, let's get real with it. And I think for a lot of time, my entire lifetime, understand that we've been saying we the same until it's time to look around and it's your family that's being pushed down, oppressed, struggling. I'm not having that no more. ADOS conference, October 4th and 5th. Hopefully you got your tickets sold out, 1,500 seats. I'm going to be in there and I got something I'm ready to say. I'm going to tell y'all I got something to say. Look, let's continue on. I got to ask you a question. You got a lot of women on Twitter talking about how they got the Cersei power or they just like Daenerys. Is this character projection genderized? You know, because I don't hear too many men saying, I'm just like Jon Snow. I'm going to come back to life. Is this something that we see more with the women, or is this the same to you? You don't have to give me your opinion.
Coloring my thing about everything is like, I think it's, you know how we have the feminist view, and I was reading The Man Not, and how it's pretty much, you know, a power grab by women who wants to be, you know, white men. So it's basically the same thing, just changing the character who's in charge. That's all it seems to
Flesh
me.
that out. What you mean by the same thing? You got to explain that to people.
All right, so basically, white capitalism is the patriarchy, right? And we all know from The Man Not that I was reading, and They Were Her Property, that new book, that it's basically these white women are not as fragile as they want to portray themselves to be. Now they're pushing themselves to be replacing the white men, and they're going to say, oh, they'll do it better or be better with the patriarchy. In my belief, than they say the white men are, but they're still the same. They're just changing the face of who's going to oppress you.
There's a lot of undertones in the Game of Thrones. I will go with that. Caller, thank you so much for calling in. I'm going to try to take as many callers as I can tonight. Thank you. Oh, man. We done talked about Game of Thrones. I might switch this up. Caller, okay. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Reggie. I'm calling from Stockton, California.
Reggie, we switching it up a little bit. I know you probably had some fire for the Game of Thrones, but I got to take you to that third question. Who's left in the NBA and why do we watch? We got Milwaukee, we got Golden State, Toronto, and I think Portland. I'm going to tell y'all now, if Milwaukee and Oakland are the last two teams, I'm going to do a show asking the question, do these cities deserve a celebration? Because Milwaukee, half the black men ain't got no job. And understand, in Wisconsin, half the black neighborhoods are prisons. Give me your take on this.
Yeah, I don't even watch and follow the sports no more. You know, just to be honest with you, I feel like if you can be bought, sold, and traded, those are the attributes of a slave.
Come on.
That's real talk.
Yeah, it is.
And I did just want to drop one piece on the Game of Thrones, if you allow me to.
Go ahead.
We the Walking Dead in that movie.
That's what somebody else was saying. That's what somebody else was saying.
That was just it in that. That's a dog whistle for them to be together, and we the Walking Dead. But as far as the NBA and the teams, you know, that's kind of like my feeling about it. I love the game of basketball, but, you know, right now, in terms of what we got going as ADOS, you know, that's just, you know, it's a distraction more than anything.
Man, thank you so much for calling. Woo! Everybody giving their opinion. We the Walking Dead. So y'all watching the show where they done killed all of our people. They just killed us and give us no storyline. We had no lines. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, what's up? What's up, Tom? My name is Hadu. I'm calling from Georgia.
Yeah, Hadu, look, we on the NBA. I looked at who's left. I told everybody if it ends up being Milwaukee and Oakland, I'm talking about it. Because Milwaukee, half the black neighborhoods in Wisconsin are prisons. And they said like the other half are Section 8 housing. I don't know what we celebrating if Milwaukee gets there. And then Oakland, you already know the story with Oakland, all that poverty and wealth inequality. But look, we're not even talking about that yet. We just talking who's left in the NBA and why do we watch? Why you watch the NBA if you watch it?
Honestly, I don't watch the NBA. Honestly, I'm from Wisconsin. I'm from Milwaukee.
Tell us about
it. That's where I'm really originally from. All I can say is that it's a war zone. You know, the hood is what I like to call the black man's and woman's concentration camp. You know, they got us concentrating on playing basketball so they can turn us into $40 million slaves and watch our brothers and sisters walk across this, run across this court and keep us distracted. Like I said, they're using our own people to keep us distracted. They just want us to be their basketball players and their entertainers, their rappers, and monetize us in any type of way that they can to get over on us and to cause a distraction and use our own people to distract us and keep on making money off of that. And it's a never-ending cycle. A black basketball player get $100 million a year, but behind the scenes, the people who employ him getting $300 million off of him.
Well, let's even talk about it. The city itself gets this celebration while they destroy black lives. Most of these cities are foot to neck on the black person's neck. Milwaukee is probably the worst of all of them. And somehow I watched this thing after TNT and these people was jumping up and down and it was all these black people in the front. And you just know that their lives are so oppressed. And we got to ask the question, what are you celebrating? And I start to look at this NBA and I start to ask this question, is it just escapism? We know about the decadent veil. We know that nearly no black people are worth $1 million. I'm not guessing. I did the Federal Reserve data came out, micro data. I did the first story on it with Matt Brunig. We pulled the micro data, showed you that it was above 1.2 million, like 340,000 black families. That's $1.2 million hard. That's not liquid, $1.2 million. So then, how many black families are above 6 million or 10? Negligible, a few thousand. We're watching extreme aberrations that are then projected and paraded by white capital to make white folks think, well, black folks got some wealth too. And none of it is true. I don't believe they play basketball. I believe they play money ball. And that money ball is to tell all the other black folks, not only you can do it too, but you got it too. Any last words?
Yes, my last words is that this is all an epic plot to keep this continuing going on. You know, see, if blacks have the wealth or we give reparations, then there's not going to be as many basketball players because we'll create a black Wall Street and we'll have our own infrastructure and we'll watch our own players and do our own thing. What I like to say is that black people are the greatest natural resource known to man. And we need to come together. We do deserve reparations, and we need to take that and create our own infrastructure. We lack infrastructure, and they know that, and they're using that. They're using the infrastructure and the power and the capital they have against us for us to keep on destroying ourselves. You know, if they don't got the hood, they can't make the next LeBron James. If they don't have the hood, they can't make the next Damian Lillard. They want to keep this cycle going on and on and on so they can keep on capitalizing off of us and keep us distracted while our hoods and our communities just stay in the hands of the devil and this detriment.
Let me add in, though. I think you're right on track. My only, and everybody has an opinion. This is in fact. I don't believe that those people are showing us any kind of obscenely valuable talent. I think it's a talent that comes from a mutation of just being taller. But in and of itself, what they're doing isn't really talent. I respect what everybody thinks about it, run fast and then jump and dunk. But it in and of itself, to me, isn't just a better talent than the next man. They've made it a talent to keep us interested in it. But fundamentally, in and of itself, you have to wonder why when you look at the Detroit game versus the Pelicans, you go look in the stands, because they love to not show us the stands. They don't tell you the ratings was down this year, but in the don't nobody be there. Don't know. People are going to 5 teams in the NBA. But that's just my opinion. Everybody has one. Caller, thank you so much for calling.
All right, take care.
Look, we having a powerful discussion. Who's left in the NBA? But I'm gonna move on to this fourth one. Let me take another caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
I turned it off. I'm calling from West Africa.
Okay. So look, give me your take on everything. Anything you want to say?
Okay. My take about the NBA is that the NBA has these basketball academies all over the world. They have a basketball academy in West Africa and Senegal. They have one in Australia. They have one, I think they have 2 in Asia. And so what I'm saying is the NBA is actively recruiting and planning to replace us. That the black boys in basketball, we're going to go the same way that black boys did in baseball. We used to dominate baseball, and now we don't. And so what I'm saying is we need to prepare for that. Watching basketball.
Wait, let's back up. I'm trying to make sure you saying it right. We need to prepare for them replacing us in playing basketball. That's what you're saying?
Yes, because they actively replacing us. They have academies all over the world, and they're getting money to train these basketball players. They don't have NBA academies in our neighborhoods. They don't have them in the hood. They don't have an NBA academy in Mississippi and Alabama training boys for free to be NBA players. They're not doing that, but they're doing that all over the world.
All right. Well, look, thank you so much for calling. I'm going to take you offline. This is the thing I see. Everybody got an opinion on this. This is just all opinion. My thing is, I think with the AAUs, they did do that. They trained black people. I don't know about academies. But at the end of the day, this is escapism. Because we don't have no wealth, we just all fighting to play some basketball and get one of them slots. Well, if you got good communities, you don't need to play no basketball. You know how many 37-year-olds want to run some more? And I'm not even dealing with that. Hold on. Let me back up. We got a whole set of real life problems, jobs. We got to be fathers. We got to learn how to lay brick, how to build roofs, how to actually be firemen, how to be policemen, how to be part of a community. But we saying they replacing us in basketball. Now, I don't think that's what that system means altogether. But I think what's starting to happen is that we've elevated basketball so high that we don't understand that this thing is actually low on the podium of real jobs in a society. Don't nobody want to play basketball or tackle. See, it's the fame you want. Let me give you an example. My good friend, God bless his soul, he always said, you got to understand that groupies are not something for sports teams. See, groupies just like people that are having fun that have wealth. But because we don't have no wealth outside of playing basketball or football, we think groupies are just about basketball and football. No, Wall Street got groupies. Understand it. Understand that anywhere there's money, there are groupies. Now, I'm not advocating for us to get groupies, but I'm saying to you, one of the things that we start to see is that we think of it in terms of basketball instead of in terms of wealth. You don't want to play basketball. You want to be stable. And you want to have enough wealth where you can grow wealth. But to do that, you need to be in a certain position in the society. To do that, you need a set of laws that are doing that for a large enough section of the society that it includes you. To do that, you need to understand politics. And what I'm seeing right now is because of the NBA and Game of Thrones, we don't even know how to count. We don't know how to live. We don't know what our place is in the society. I'm looking at this thing, and America has done made black folks crazy. They really think Steph Curry do something. Tell them to make an ADOS. I'm just saying it to you straight. This is the most, look, Dr. Cosby came on the show. And he said this is the third big movement. The question is, are you going to get on board? Are you going to be watching Kawhi Leonard tonight? Are you going to get on board, or you got to go get your Daenerys wig so you can watch it with your homegirls and figure out what's going to happen next on this show, this fantasy show that teaches us about power, as the guy said earlier. I'm saying all this because it's time to talk about it. Let me take another caller. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Oh, this Will from Gainesville.
Will, look, I'm going to ask you this next question.
Yes,
is the NBA healthy to watch, and will it get unhealthy as they introduce gambling after the Supreme Court decision? I want to read this article that came out last year in the New York Times.
Okay.
So here we go. The Supreme Court struck down a 1992 federal law. Let me back up before I read this. What that tells you is that in 92, it was different. And what that tells you is that a whole generation of people have basically grown up in cities without this sports gambling. We don't even know about lines and point spreads. When we watch the casino movies and all that, that's foreign to us. So we don't understand the destructive force that gambling can have on impoverished communities. So we have no idea what's coming next. But let me read. The Supreme Court struck down a 1992 federal law on Monday that effectively banned commercial sports betting in most states, opening the door to legalizing the estimated $150 billion in illegal wagers on professional amateur sports that Americans make every year. I just watched TNT. Understand that the ESPN got a whole new show. This is an article on their show about gambling. They teaching gambling to your kids, to your younglings, to your young adults. Bit by bit and bet by bet, the negative connotation surrounding sports gambling is fading, and the significance of ESPN some 40 years into its existence launching a show all about what used to be the sport world's dirty little secret was not lost on the new show Daily Wager, hosted by Doug Kazarian. Give me your take on this gambling. What you think about that in the NBA?
Well, gambling in the NBA is a sore thumb for our community. It will basically bring down the poverty even worse than we already in.
Come on.
In the situation we already in.
All right.
But I gotta, like my grandfather always told me, to always put yourself in another person's shoes. Now, like hypothetically speaking, what if we, as a community, our community, the African black community, put our money together and start our own NBA?
See, this is the thing. I think some of us, there was a great tweet thread done by a woman on Twitter, but it also connects with my report. I don't think we really understand the wealth level we have and the position we have in this society. But when you watch those games, they are expressions of the distribution channel and the distribution model. I was talking to Byron right before, I think Fox, like 2 years ago, Fox bought a big amount of channels. You know, Byron just bought the big channels from Tribune, and he was breaking down how they finance the channels. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is you're not watching basketball. You're watching the distribution power of white wealth. They can put a lot of different things on that. And I'm saying that we found that out. We found that out when the Big Three came around and essentially tried to do a league, and you saw they didn't really have the money. It was money from a foreign company and all kind of stuff. The wealth level of black folks is I don't think we really understand. We don't have wealth in this country. I'm not saying you.
Our wealth gap is extremely that we still lost from back in 1920. So
caller, let me do one more thing. Let me do one more thing, because I'm coming to the end. I want to get to some of these. I'm going to share some of these. I was on Twitter, and I saw these tweets, and I wanted to share these tweets with people and kind of show you where black folks' head is at. And I believe that these tweets show we got some real work to do. Number one, this guy didn't burn. I think she heard the wrong bell. Game of Thrones, them thrones. And then you press it, and then he played music. Then the next person below that said, I cannot tell a lie. When Danny and the dragon damn near tore the building down, jumping off it, I started yelling and clapping. And then somebody recognized and says, why did they give black people the internet? And they didn't give us the internet to do this. Somebody responded, for moments such as where we can be great. I don't know how this is being great. Now, I know that was meant probably as sarcasm, but it's time to get real about us not being great and us actually shine. Go ahead. I'll leave you last.
Well, basically, I'm going to sum it up to this. The fact of the matter is, the greatest commodity that we have, we don't use, and that's unity.
Come on.
That's the only commodity that we have right now. We done had the Obamas, we got the Oprahs, we got the Jay-Z's and all that. That don't mean nothing. That have proven us time to time for the last 16 years that don't mean nothing. Only thing that only time we're gonna have anything is we unite. That's the only thing. And then when we unite, then we can speak on wealth, then we can speak on education, then we can speak on other things like that. And we so divided with different organizations, different religions, different this, that, and the other. We not one umbrella. Every other culture.
I think your phone is going in and out, caller. The brother's dropping knowledge. He's saying that we need to get unified and have unity, and I have to agree with him. But we also got to be aware and knowledgeable about what's going on. When I looked at some of these tweets, for me, they said a lot. Let me read another one from a PhD, a person with a PhD from their title. Personally, I learned from that episode not to let anyone gaslight me into believing one dragon, a few Dothraki, and the Unsullied crew ain't enough. Sometimes we focus so much on what we've lost, we lose sight about what we actually need to get the job done. I don't understand how you made like this kind of jump on some fantasy show. That's not what... for me, this is the problem right here on full display. You can't even let fantasy be fantasy. You done made as a man thinketh argument from Daenerys and some dragons. Come on, man. You can find that. That's like taking a fortune cookie, and when you read the fortune cookie, trying to make a real reality out of what's on the fortune cookie. They write it so that anything can, you will have a good trip today. Well, yeah, I did have a good trip when I rode up here. Come on, man. Look. Let's keep going. Let me read a couple more of these. Me wishing for Cersei to die for 7 seasons. Also me when she died. This picture of a black man crying. We playing. We out here playing. Let me read a couple of the NBA ones. We have Vivica Fox. This is a meme from back with LeBron James and Stephen Curry. When LeBron looked at Stephen Curry, I knew a meme was coming from that. What the hell? And it says, when your stepdad tries to talk to you like he your pops. I'm going to put some of these in the final show so you'll get to see them popped up. Another one is Chris Paul. This is Michael Lee. Chris Paul had his chance to avenge all those Stephen Curry memes. Dropped him with a crossover, then went all J. Cole. I shoot my shot and it brick. Last one I'm going to read is Janae Kingsbury, my colleague, created this meme, and it's basically talking about next level thinking. My new move for 2018. So much of this is just projections. We're going to have to get real. Because I think what's happening for black folks is we don't want to be real about our lives and the limitations. And that's not about getting lost in the limitations. It's about understanding ain't no fantasy Game of Thrones, ain't no fantasy basketball, ain't none of it going to make your world real. What will is politics. What's going to make your world real is politics. Not the kind of politics where you go and you have 3 dragons and you go burn down the city. The kind of politics where you do like ADOS constituents are doing, where they talking to Black Caucus members in ways we have never seen in our lifetime. Pulling out cell phones, asking about a black agenda. See, people say you can do both. I don't think so. That's my belief. I think, yeah, maybe you can watch it, but once you get to the point where you obsessed on Twitter, you too far deep. So your obsessions are keeping you from your reality. Your obsessions with Steph Curry's life, how his brother and him get along, who they dating, how his wife don't like this or that, are keeping you from the reality of the politics in your community. I'm saying all this because what we see is this escapism. Game of Thrones, NBA basketball, and escapism. We see black folks across this country that need to awaken themselves to their own situation and become aware that this is the moment. This is the time. This is your moment. We got 20 Democratic candidates in the field. It's blood in the streets politically. This is the time when we press forward and we demand reparations. See, we let Biden come on the field and he got the history. He should be off the field for black folks. But because you're doing all these games, I can't get you to talk about it. That's going to work itself out. That's 16 months away. Well, you do the work for 16 months away today. You start the work today. I feel like when we look at these memes in so many ways, what we start to see, there's another one from Nathan Morisian, and he says, frauds, overrated regular season teams, Celtics in 5. The Milwaukee Bucks are going to the Eastern Conference Finals. The Milwaukee Bucks are going to the Eastern Conference Final. I gave you the numbers on Milwaukee, I'm not guessing. Half of Wisconsin, black neighborhoods are prisons. The other half are Section 8. Other than a small few black communities. It's a state that don't deserve any black love in my mind. But in cities across this country, we have to ask the same question. Should we celebrate Oakland if Oakland can't do right by its black folks? We're going to do a whole show on it if we get Milwaukee versus Oakland in the finals. We have to ask ourselves the question, the hard question of fantasy taking us away from the reality of our situation. I wanted to do this show because for me, I think in this moment, you got the Game of Thrones final episode. You got us in the middle of the playoffs. And between both of those, it's hard to talk to black folks sometimes. You go to their Twitters, I mean, they debating and fighting over Game of Thrones like it's real life. It's showing us real politics. It's showing us how real power is disseminated. But what I find is that as a result of thinking that way, you can't think at all. Look. I wanted to come to you to do this show. This is Tone Talks. I appreciate y'all tuning in. I'm going to be back next Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This is Dash Radio, Dash Talk X. Please go to tonetalks.org to subscribe or donate. Thank you.